Hey, what is going on YouTube? In today's video, we're going to take a look at the homelab. More specifically, we're going to go ahead and see the updates for Q1 of 2025. Throughout this year, I'm going to go ahead and provide updates in the homelab to see what has changed, what additions I have made, or what I have removed. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and just review the most recent changes and additions that I had made. So over the last couple of months, I had changed my configuration. First, we're going to start with the dashboard. This is also in another video, which I will post in the description below. This is Dashy, the dashboard. Pretty simple and straightforward. I have not added much to it since I had last talked about this. But as you can see here along the top, we have the quick links. This points to GitHub, which is going to be GitLab soon, and I'll talk about that at the end of this video. We have our YouTube channel, CyberMe. Down here at the bottom, we have our home network. So we have our 2 routers and a Raspberry Pi. And as you can see right now, it is down. Now, the reason why, which I'll talk about again in a minute, is we had migrated, or we had implemented our Home Assistant recently. And in doing so, I decided to use the Raspberry Pi that was hosting Pi-hole. So I had switched some things around. So in this case, I do have 2 Raspberry Pis. One of them is running Home Assistant, and then the other one is going to be running some services such as Pi-hole and a few other things. So in this case, this is something I still have to work on. Then we have some of my websites. So for those that are not familiar, I have a blog, which I do not continuously update, and I do hope to get back into that in the near future. And then I have some other personal websites, which is why this is collapsed. But this just gives me a status indicator to see if anything is down, to get in there and make sure I fix that. Then over here on the right, you're going to see our services. So in the homelab, we have N8N, which is used for automation. We have the Pi-hole, which is down right now, and that's primarily used for DNS records, but it also could be used for ad blocking and stuff like that. We have our reverse proxy, which is also down right now. That was on the Raspberry Pi. This is something that we have to get spun up again in the near future. We have our Home Assistant, and we have our Portainer. For those that are not familiar, here is N8N. I do not have any automations. I just spun it up recently using this new infrastructure, which I'll explain. So N8N is not being currently used, but it is used for automating pretty much anything. And I do have a few videos on it, and I do plan to cover more videos on that going forward. Now, then we have Home Assistant. This is something that we are just standing up, and we're getting more and more into it. I also have a few good videos on this, along with some links to the products that are being used. In this case, as you can see, I built a little dashboard just for our master bedroom temperature and our office temperature, along with the various humidity levels in both of those rooms. I do plan to do a lot more home automation. That is one of the goals for 2025. Like I said, we're just getting started. I also have some door sensors, which is not in this dashboard. I still have to configure that, but I do have a video that covers on the installation and configuration of those as well. So definitely be sure to check that out, and I will add that in the description below. But if home automation interests you, definitely stick around, because that is something that we're going to continue to do on this channel going forward. Next, we have our Portainer. Here was the most recent change that we have made. I think probably one of the biggest changes that we had made, because it involved doing a few other things. So in this case, we are using Portainer to manage our Docker instances. I don't think it's absolutely necessary, but I did find it quite useful in terms of pretty much doing infrastructure as code and automating my environment. So first, we'll go ahead and we'll talk about the stacks. Well, pretty much that's the only thing that we're going to talk about in this video. I do go more in depth in how Portainer is used in a few tutorials. But the reason why I want to point out is because we're just talking about the home lab. So in the home lab, we have some stacks. This stack is pretty much described to me, or the way I look at it is infrastructure as code, to pretty much to stand up our environment and manage our Docker instances. So if we go into our stacks, you can see that we have Dashy, we have N8N, and then obviously we have Portainer. And then you can see we have total control of these 2 Docker instances, and the type is Docker Compose. But if we go into the Dashy dashboard, you're going to see a few things. So one of them being the GitOps updates and the redeploy from a Git repository. So this is what I was talking about as infrastructure as code. And we will get into our files in a minute. But anytime any changes are made to our Docker Compose file hosted on our GitLab, that will go ahead using GitOps updates. That will go ahead and update. Actually, this one's off right now. It might both be off. I don't know why I turned them off. I can't remember. But with GitOps updates on, which I will turn back on, in save settings, any changes that are made to that configuration file, the YAML file within our GitLab, it will make that change and pull it into our local stack. So that is the main reason why I'm kind of using this now, is to kind of, because I'm pretty heavily using GitLab for many things, and I just like to use GitLab to automate and maintain my environment. So I just felt it was just super easy to kind of maintain all my Docker Compose files into GitLab, for version control and stuff like that. And then this way I could just use Portainer to go ahead and perform these updates and manage that infrastructure as necessary. But that's pretty much it as far as Portainer goes. Like I said, I go more in depth in other videos, but that is the main reason what we are doing in this home lab. Just simple. Anytime we're going to spin up a Docker instance that we plan to keep for our home lab, we're going to go ahead and keep it in here. And this is all backed up as well, which we will talk about. So if we go into our home lab or on our GitLab, so I used to host my home lab documentation in GitHub, and I'm starting to move it over to GitLab. And the reason being is because, like I said, I'm starting to use GitLab a lot more for CI/CD pipelines and stuff like that, not only in the home lab, but also in the workplace. And so I just am enjoying it a lot, and I think that this is the way forward for me. So as you can see, we have some files here, and then we have some documentation in the README. So this is pretty much going to document the various services that we are running. As you can see here, we have a project runner documentation, which is also not running right now, but it was installed on this IP address here. We have our Ubuntu 1 server, which is the 192.168.1.107, and it's used for hosting various home lab services. It's just a GitLab runner, which is not right now. We have a RESTIC backup job, which is currently in progress, and that's used to back up our Docker volumes. We have one of our Raspberry Pis, and that's 192.168.1.51. This was the one that has been torn down. Here's our home assistant, which is our secondary Raspberry Pi, and that's on 1.153. Then the services, to kind of break it down. So this is pretty much the servers or hardware. So this is a virtual machine and our Hyper-V, and these are both Raspberry Pis. On the Ubuntu 1 server, we're going to have these three services running. So I need to probably make that more clear for me. But we have Portainer on port 9443. We have Dashy on port 4000 and N8N. All of that is hosted within Portainer, obviously, like we just discussed. Then we have on the Raspberry Pi, we have Pi-hole and the reverse proxy, which is no longer the case. And then in here, that should be it for now, actually. And then we have our disaster recovery, which is another thing that I wanted to hit big on this year. So every year, over the years, every time I had a home lab, I would, it would eventually get broken, and then I would just either give up on it, or it would just take time forever to get it back up and running, or I would move. In this case, I'm trying to make sure it's more seamless. It's a more seamless process. So as you can see, we have our Docker volumes hosted on our 192.168.1.107, and that's all backed up to AWS S3 bucket using RESTIC. It's in progress. I did some testing on it. I just still have to finish that up, but that will be good to have, so we could have that all backed up on a weekly basis. And then we have our Portainer volume, which is also important, and that's going to be also backed up to AWS around the same time. And then we also have our Home Assistant, which will be backed up throughout the week, and to one of our Google Drives on our personal account. And then I just kind of put a quick note here for Docker. Portainer stacks currently hosted in this project under corresponding Docker Compose files, which we'll talk about. And then we just kind of break down some of the services. So here we have purpose. So the purpose of N8N is automation workflows. How's it set up? Kind of just talks about it a little bit. Same thing for Joplin. Joplin is what we are currently using for all of our notes. This is the same thing I've used over the years. I've said I went to different things, but I really always go back to Joplin, as it has so many of my notes, and it's just a pain just to transfer Markdown to another program. And then Home Assistant. So if we go back to the files, one of the things that we're going to look at is going to be our Docker Compose files. As you can see here, we have our Dashy Docker Compose.yaml file, and that's going to be the file that's going to spin up that Docker container within Portainer. So if we made any changes here, that would update that stack, and then it would get redeployed to our environment. And that same thing applies to the N8N. This is going to get changed and put into some folders later on, but right now I just slapped them in there as I was doing some testing. And we have some scripts. This is nothing crazy. This is some of the scripts that we were working with. This is for the rustic. Like I said, this is still in progress. So anything you see here, don't, it's not done yet. Here's just a simple README used to back up all Docker volumes on this server, including Portainer to S3 bucket to be used in disaster recovery. Again, the biggest reason why I want to do that is because if it ever gets torn down or whatever, I could quickly, it's all backed up in the cloud. I could use infrastructure as code and I could spin it all up pretty quickly. And then we're also starting to build out some pipelines. One of the pipeline is something that we just started playing with recently. Actually, not in this one. This one, I don't have any pipelines. And then we have some CloudFormation templates, which is also has since migrated to another project on GitLab, which I'll talk about as well. So this is pretty much the home lab. So like I said, those are the various services and servers running in our home lab. But now another thing that we're starting to do more is we're going to be doing a lot of AWS stuff. And I use CloudFormation a lot. And so what I've been doing recently is, again, this is just in progress, just getting started with this. But here's some CloudFormation templates that I've been playing around with to get this idea that I have in my head. So every day I will get on AWS, I'll spin up some labs and I'll do some testing and stuff like that. These are some simple ones, but I have more, advanced ones and stuff that we're going to cover in other videos. But in this, some of this is duplicate, so I have to delete it. But if you look at our templates directory, nope, wrong one. Templates directory, we have a few YAML files. So we have a CloudFormation templates. So this one's an EC2 lab 1 template, and then a metrics lab, which is something that we're going to cover in a video maybe this week or next week. And what this is doing, or what the plan is here. So instead of, if you go into CloudFormation in AWS, you have to, go through, either you could use CLI, or if you use the actual console, you have to, fill out all the options and dialogues and boxes and stuff like that to spin up your cloud and then pull it back down and whatever, then you have to store it somewhere if you want to tear it down and put it back up. So what I'm thinking that I'm kind of working with is I built a little pipeline that I'm still, this is bare bones. But what it's going to do is that, so right now, any templates, anytime that this pipeline runs, so anytime we make changes to the pipeline, it will go ahead and push those templates to S3, and which are all version controlled. So that's going to be using the AWS S3, and that's going to copy the templates folder to this S3 bucket recursively. So everything inside of templates will be copied over to here. And then we have so this is the verify S3 job, which is actually incorrect. This needs to be a new job name, but whatever, this is one job here. And again, we are using this image here to perform this, which gives us access to the AWS CLI commands. And then we have another job, which is deploy test lab. And this is going to be a manual job. So my thought process here is, if I come into GitLab and let's say I make some changes and I want to use it, I go ahead and I could run this pipeline and then I could deploy it. Or if it's already deployed and I want to use the same template, I could go in here and press a button manually and we'll go ahead and spin up that stack for me. So if we head over to an actual pipeline, as you can see, I did some testing. Then you will see that we have our job. So we have test job, which is verify S3, and then we have our deploy test lab. So if I click on this and hit play, it'll run that job of deploying our CloudFormation right here, which will be this test lab, and using this specific YAML file, and that will go ahead and deploy it to our environment. And it's as simple as that. I'm also thinking about maybe building a pipeline or a job within this pipeline to maybe just, to delete it so it could all be done within GitLab, or I could just go into CloudFormation within AWS and remove it. But that's for another video. All right, well, that's going to close out today's video. I just wanted to get a quick update out for 2025 for Q1 for the home lab. I think I kind of been slacking, I guess you could say, with as far as updates and making changes to the home lab, but I have been labbing a lot, and it's not really been put on YouTube yet, so this is something that I'm trying to get more work into. So just keep that in mind going forward, is that there's going to be more videos coming out, and I do just enjoy being technical and providing technical tutorials, hopefully teaching others on how to do this stuff. So please, if you enjoy it, drop a like, comment below, and let me know. And if you have any ideas as well, that would also be appreciated. But yeah, that's going to close out today's video. So we went over the dashboard, we went over some N8N and how it's used, home automation, Portainer for stacks and infrastructure as code, and then our GitLab for homelab documentation and AWS automations. So that's going to be it for today. I hope you were able to take something away. And as always, never stop learning.